Maria Alice was 7 years old and had a smile capable of lighting up the entire Copacabana shoreline. On that Saturday morning, January 26, 2002, she was adjusting in the mirror the colorful hat her grandmother had given her for Christmas. Vibrant stripes of green, yellow, and red with a hibiscus flower attached to the side. The girl twirled in front of the mirror, admiring her reflection, while the radio in the living room played an Axé song she couldn't yet sing properly. The apartment on Rua Santa Clara smelled of fresh coffee and laundry detergent. It was a perfect day to go to the beach. No one there could have imagined that this would be the last day anyone would see that girl alive, much less that it would take 8 long years for the truth to come to light. And when it did, it would shock the entire Copacabana community in a way no one could have ever expected. Luciana Santos, Maria Alice's mother, was in the kitchen finishing the breakfast dishes. Her hands still had the strong smell of disinfectant, a remnant of the 3 cleaning jobs she held during the week. She rubbed her sore back against the sink's edge, a habit she had developed after years of carrying buckets and mopping floors in other people's homes. The apartment was small, but it was theirs. 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, a view of the building across the street. No luxury, but with dignity. Roberto Andrade, Maria Alice's stepfather, had left early that morning. He said he needed to take care of some business at the sporting goods store where he worked as a manager on Avenida Nossa Senhora de Copacabana. He promised to be back before lunch to take them to the beach. The girl called him Uncle Beto and seemed to like his presence at home. He always brought chocolates hidden in his pocket, helped with math homework and fixed broken toys. The building's neighbors adored him. He always greeted everyone in the elevator, helped older ladies carry their groceries, and offered a ride when it rained. But there was something. Small, almost imperceptible. Sometimes Luciana would notice Roberto staring into space with an expression she couldn't decipher. Other times he would overreact to trivial things. A broken glass, a missed phone call, a simple question about his past. She never paid it much mind. She thought it was just his way. Everyone has their quirks, their silences. Maria Alice spent the morning watching cartoons. She had already set aside her new swimsuit, her toy bucket, and a yellow plastic shovel to make sandcastles. At the public school she attended, the teachers said she was special. She always offered to help her classmates, greeted everyone in the hallways, and drew flowers in the margins of her notebooks. A child with an easy smile, the kind who makes friends anywhere. Around 11 in the morning, Roberto returned. Maria Alice jumped off the sofa and ran to him. "Uncle Beto, can we go now?" Roberto smiled. He said yes, but they needed to have lunch first. Luciana had prepared rice, beans, steak with onions, and a salad, a simple Saturday meal. The table was set, the family gathered. Maria Alice asked for soda instead of juice. Roberto told a joke about a customer from the store. The girl laughed too loudly and almost choked. Luciana remembers grabbing a napkin and wiping her daughter's mouth, still laughing. An absolutely trivial moment. Common, forgettable. For Luciana, it would be the last meal she would share with her daughter. 1 o'clock. The sun was high. The beach must have been crowded by now. Roberto offered to take Maria Alice while Luciana finished tidying up the kitchen. She hesitated. She usually went with them. But she was tired. Her back ached. The week had been long. 15 minutes of rest wouldn't hurt, she thought. Roberto was trustworthy. He always took good care of the girl. Luciana waved from the window. She saw the 2 of them cross the street toward the boardwalk, Maria Alice with her colorful hat bucket in hand, Roberto holding her little hand firmly. This would be the last image Luciana would have of her daughter. 15 minutes later, Luciana went down. The sand burned her bare feet. The sun reflected off the sea like blades of light. She scanned the area where they usually stayed. Nothing. She walked to Posto 5. Nothing. She went back, searched again. The cold feeling in her stomach began to rise, the kind of premonition every mother knows, that silent warning that screams inside your chest. She ran back to the apartment. Empty. 2:30 p.m. Roberto's phone doesn't answer. She tries again. Nothing. Again. Silence. Luciana runs back down to the beach. She screams her daughter's name, asks beachgoers, street vendors, lifeguards. Have you seen a little girl? With a colorful hat? With a man about 35? Heads shake no. Others don't even pay attention. Copacabana is packed. Thousands of people. Looking for someone is like looking for a needle in a haystack. The salty taste of sweat mixes with that of tears. Luciana no longer knows if she's running or stumbling. The noise of the beach, the laughter, the music, the waves, begins to grow distant, muffled, as if she were underwater. 3:45 p.m. Almost 2 hours since they left. Luciana enters the 12th police precinct of Copacabana. A police officer on duty is typing something on a computer, looking bored. She approaches the counter, breathless, trying to explain. The officer slowly looks up. "Ma'am, can you repeat that?" Luciana repeats. "Maria Alice, 7 years old, colorful hat, went to the beach with her stepfather, disappeared." The officer sighs. "They probably went to get some ice cream, ma'am, or to visit a relative. This happens all the time." Luciana insists that Roberto wouldn't do that without telling her. Something is wrong. She feels it. The officer promises they will start a search, but she sees in his eyes that they aren't taking it seriously. Not yet. 6 p.m. Roberto finally answers. His voice is strange, trembling, broken. "Hi, Luciana." She asks where he is. "I had a problem with the car. I'm in the North Zone. I got delayed." Luciana feels her heart pound in her ear. "Where is Maria Alice?" Silence. 3 seconds that feel like an eternity. "She's with me. Everything is fine. We're on our way back now." There was something in his voice, something unconvincing, something hidden, broken, evasive. "Let me talk to her." "She's sleeping in the back seat." Click. He hangs up. Roberto never came home. Maria Alice was never seen alive again. 10 p.m. The civil police officially begin the search. The apartment is sealed off. Neighbors are questioned. Security cameras in the area are analyzed. One of them captures Roberto and Maria Alice crossing the street towards the beach, exactly as Luciana described. After that, nothing. As if they had vanished into thin air. Sunday morning. Roberto's car is found in a parking lot in Tijuca. The trunk is open. Inside, Maria Alice's colorful hat, the yellow bucket, and stains. Dark stains on the carpet. The preliminary analysis confirms blood. The girl's blood. Roberto Andrade officially becomes the prime suspect. But he has vanished. Bank account untouched, cell phone off. No relatives know where he is. No friends have heard from him. He has dissolved into the urban chaos of Rio de Janeiro. The search mobilizes Copacabana. Posters with Maria Alice's face, that smile, that hat are plastered on every post, every wall, every building entrance. Volunteers search vacant lots, abandoned construction sites, ditches. Divers check the seabed. Every anonymous tip is investigated. Every lead is followed to the end. But nothing. The press covers it intensely. A reporter broadcasts live. From the shoreline, here where Maria Alice was last seen. TV shows display the photos. The case gets a name, the Copacabana disappearance. Luciana goes into shock. She washes the same plate 3 times without realizing it. She sleeps clutching her daughter's school uniform. She calls the police station, forgets she already called and calls again. The apartment falls silent. A heavy, suffocating silence that didn't exist before. And then, amid the frantic investigation, a detective from the homicide division, Marcelo Tavares, picks up one of the missing posters. He looks at Maria Alice's smile. He feels something tighten in his chest. He has 2 daughters. One of them is the same age. Marcelo tapes the poster to the wall next to his desk. He looks at that photo every day when he arrives. He makes a silent, almost unconscious decision. I won't let this become just another case file. But that wouldn't be the only secret the case held. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months. Maria Alice remains missing. Roberto remains a fugitive. The media loses interest. The posters are covered by other posters, other tragedies, other stories. Copacabana moves on. Life doesn't. Life. Stop. For Luciana, time froze on that Saturday in January 2002. In the next block, you will discover how this case, which moved an entire community, was forgotten by the press and the police themselves, tossed to the bottom of a pile of archived files. But Detective Marcelo Tavares, haunted by the smile of that girl on the poster, could never forget, and that obsession years later would make all the difference between justice and impunity. Continue to understand why this case, archived and forgotten for almost a decade, still haunts those who lived in Copacabana, and why the truth, when it finally emerged, revealed a horror no one was prepared to face. Detective Marcelo Tavares had 15 years on the force under his belt. He had seen it all. Decomposing bodies, brutal executions, shattered families. But there was something about Maria Alice's case that wouldn't let him sleep. Maybe it was her smile on the poster. Maybe it was his own daughters sleeping in the next room, the same age as the missing girl. Or maybe it was intuition, that quiet, insistent voice that every experienced investigator learns to listen to. Marcelo taped the poster to the wall next to his desk. He looked at that face every day when he arrived. A silent decision formed within him. I won't let this become just another case file. February 2002. The Rio de Janeiro Homicide Division was in chaos. Cases piled up on desks, phones rang non-stop, the air conditioner was broken, and the coffee maker had been empty since early morning. Homicides in favelas, drug trafficking executions, crimes of passion. The public machine was operating at its limit, overwhelmed, underfunded, exhausted. But Maria Alice's case had made headlines. The pressure was coming from above. The chief detective demanded results. Journalists called every hour, and Luciana Santos showed up at the station every day, with swollen eyes and a broken voice, asking the same thing. Any news? Marcelo assembled a small team. 2 field investigators, Carvalho and Mendez, tired but competent veterans. A forensic expert. A document analyst. The objective was clear: find Roberto Andrade and find Maria Alice. Roberto's car had been located in Tijuca, abandoned. The colorful hat and bucket in the trunk, bloodstains on the carpet. Marcelo personally supervised the collection of samples. The expert worked in silence with tweezers and plastic bags. The result came 2 days later, blood type O positive, consistent with Maria Alice. A small amount, not fatal, but enough to indicate an injury. No signs of a struggle. No fingerprints other than Roberto's and the girl's. The car was too clean. Marcelo reviewed the security camera. Footage frame by frame. Roberto and Maria Alice leave the building at 1:07 p.m. They cross the street. They walk toward the boardwalk. The last image, the 2 of them entering a side alley between 2 beach kiosks. After that, nothing. The next camera, 50 meters ahead, never records them. How does someone disappear in broad daylight? The team began to dig into Roberto Andrade's life. Where did he live before? Where did he work? Who were his friends, relatives, ex-girlfriends? Every name was checked, every address visited. And that's when Marcelo found the first major anomaly. Carvalho entered the room holding a folder. "Chief, look at this." Marcelo read the report. Roberto Andrade had a legitimate CPF, Brazilian Individual Taxpayer Registry number, issued in 1999. But before that, nothing. No birth certificate, no school records, no formal employment. It was as if Roberto Andrade had appeared out of nowhere. Marcelo requested a deep background check. 2 days later, the truth came out. Roberto Andrade was a fake name. The real name, Roberto Mendes Silva, born in Governador Valadares, Minas Gerais, with a criminal record, assault, threats, domestic violence, and ex-partner filed a police report in 1997, accusing him of repeated assaults and obsessive control. The case was archived. She withdrew the complaint. Roberto disappeared from Valadares shortly after. He changed states. He changed his name. He started over. Marcelo rubbed his face with his hands. Luciana knew none of this. She met Roberto Andrade in 2000 at a sporting goods fair. He seemed kind, attentive, hard-working. She trusted him. Maria Alice trusted him. He was a predator. The search intensified. The federal police were called in. Arrest warrants were signed. Marcelo held the pen, looked at Roberto's photo on the document, and signed with force. The photo was posted on wanted boards in police stations across the country. A police officer from the 12th precinct commented in the hallway, "This guy is long gone. Probably not even in Brazil anymore." Marcelo didn't respond. He kept searching. Airports, bus stations, borders, all points were monitored. Street informants were pressured, rewards were offered. Nothing. Roberto Mendes Silva had dissolved. Meanwhile, the search for Maria Alice continued. Vacant lots were excavated. Rivers were dredged. K9 units were brought to different parts of the city. Marcelo accompanied an operation in a wooded area in Tijuca. Unbearable heat, mosquitoes, thick brush. The dogs indicated something. The team started digging. Marcelo held his breath. Bones. His heart stopped. Preliminary analysis, animal bones, not human. Marcelo sat on the ground, leaning against the back of a tree. He wiped the sweat from his face. Carvalho approached. "Chief, let's keep going." Marcelo nodded. He got up slowly. The press covered everything. A reporter broadcasted live from the shoreline. Here, where Maria Alice was last seen, the community still awaits answers. TV shows aired interviews with a devastated Luciana, pleading for information. Experts debated hypotheses on talk shows. The case dominated the headlines. Where is Maria Alice? Who is Roberto Andrade? Copacabana in shock. Marcelo worked 16 hours a day. He would get home in the middle of the night. His wife, Renata, would be waiting up in the living room. "You need to rest, Marcelo." He'd take off his shoes, sigh. "I know." But he couldn't. He would look at his daughters sleeping. The older one was 7, the same age as Maria Alice. He felt a tightness in his chest. He would go back to the station before dawn. The weeks passed. Nothing. March 2002. A month and a half after the disappearance. An anonymous call came into the station. A witness claimed to have seen a man resembling Roberto in a boarding house in Penha. Marcelo and the team went immediately. They broke down the room door. Empty. The man had left hours earlier, according to the boarding house owner. He paid in advance, left in a hurry this morning. But he left something behind. A backpack with clothes, an old cell phone, and a notebook. Marcelo flipped through the pages. Disconnected. Notes, names, addresses, numbers. And in the middle, a sentence scribbled in blue pen. "Forgive me." Forgive him for what? The cell phone went to forensics. Call logs were recovered. Most were to disposable numbers, impossible to trace. But one number was repeated. A landline, registered to Sonia. Mendes Silva, Roberto's mother. But that wouldn't be the only secret the past held. April, May, June. The months passed. The media began to lose interest. Other crimes emerged, other tragedies. Maria Alice's name was pushed to the inner pages, then to small blurbs, then to oblivion. June 2002. 6 months after the disappearance, the chief detective called Marcelo in for a meeting. The room was suffocating. Folders piled to the ceiling. The phone rang incessantly. The chief sat behind his desk, a tired expression on his face. "Tavares, we need to reallocate resources. We have other cases." Piling up. Marcelo protested. "There are still leads. We don't have the budget, Marcelo. We don't have the manpower. The case remains open, but you need to focus on investigations with a higher chance of resolution." Marcelo knew what that meant. Archiving. He went back to his desk. He looked at the poster of Maria Alice on the wall. That smile, that colorful hat, that interrupted life. He slowly took the poster down, folded it carefully, put it in his drawer, but he didn't throw it away. He never would. December 2002. The case was officially archived. Maria Alice's file was placed on a dusty shelf in the cold case room. Marcelo watched the scene from a distance. An employee climbed a ladder, shoved the file between dozens of others. Dust fell. Just another number, just another forgotten name. Luciana still showed up once a month. Marcelo always received her, always. Told her he was still looking. And it was true in his spare time on weekends alone. The years passed, 2003, 2004, 2005. Roberto was never found. Maria Alice was never found. Marcelo was promoted, transferred, new cases, new victims. But the drawer where he kept the poster went with him. Everywhere. He would open it from time to time, look at it, make a silent promise. In the next block you will discover how the case fell into the deepest oblivion and how Maria Alice's family plunged into a bottomless pit of despair. Luciana will lose everything. The community will forget. The girls' room will remain untouched for years, a silent sanctuary to a life that never returned. This will be the darkest point of the story, the moment of greatest despair, when everyone had given up. But it is precisely there, at the bottom of the abyss, that a single forgotten detail, a banal note, in an old report, will begin to resurface like a distant echo. Continue to understand how Maria Alice's case became a ghost, and why Detective Marcelo Tavares, even after years, could never erase that smile from his memory. 3 years had passed since Maria Alice disappeared. 3 years of silence. 3 years of absence. The apartment on Rua Santa Clara seemed frozen in time. Luciana Santos kept her daughter's room exactly as it was on that Saturday in January 2002. The new swimsuit still hanging on the hanger, the yellow bucket leaning against the wall, the drawings of flowers in the margins of her school notebooks, the bed made, as if Maria Alice would return at any moment, but she would never return. Luciana had lost her job. The 3 houses where she worked as a cleaner let her go, not because of incompetence, but because she had become a shadow of herself. She would arrive late, forget what she was doing, sit on the floor and cry without warning. Her employers tried to be understanding, but life doesn't stop. They needed someone reliable. The money ran out, the bills piled up. Neighbors helped with what they could, a food basket here, a gas voucher there. But charity has its limits. And the worst part wasn't the hunger. The worst part was the silence. Copacabana moved on. The missing posters were covered by party flyers, political propaganda, real estate billboards. Maria Alice's photo disappeared from the sidewalks, the posts, the building entrances. Some people still vaguely remembered, oh, that girl, and what was her name again? But most no longer remembered. Life on the shoreline continued. Tourists, street vendors, beachgoers. The sun shone every day. The waves crashed on the sand, as if nothing had happened, as if Maria Alice had never existed. Luciana would sometimes walk along the beach, still searching. She would look at every child from a distance, her heart racing. Could that be her? Did someone take her far away and now she's back? But it never was. It never would be. She stopped going to the police station, not because she had given up, but because she could no longer bear the pity in the officer's eyes, that look that said without words, "I'm sorry, but there's nothing more we can do." The birthdays were the worst days. January 2003. Maria Alice would have turned 8. Luciana lit a candle on a cake she bought with the little money she had. She sat alone in the living room, sang "Happy Birthday" in a low voice, crying, blew out the candle, ate a slice in silence. The rest stayed in the fridge until it spoiled. January 2004. 9 years old. Luciana didn't even buy a cake. She stayed in her daughter's room all day, lying on her bed, hugging her school uniform. She didn't eat, she didn't drink water. She just stayed there, smelling the scent that was no longer there. January 2005. 10 years old. Luciana didn't get out of bed. Not hers, not her daughter's. She just stared at the ceiling, empty, completely empty. The family tried to help at first. Maria Alice's grandmother, Luciana's mother, came to live with her for a few months, but the pain was too great. The grandmother was also devastated. 2 broken women trying to support each other, but both were sinking. "You need to move on, daughter." "How?" "I don't know. But you have to." "I can't, Mom, I can't." Maria Alice's biological father, who had separated from Luciana years before, showed up a few times. He brought money when he could. He would sit in the living room in silence, not knowing what to say. He also carried the guilt. If he had stayed, if he hadn't abandoned the family, Maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe Roberto would never have entered their lives. Maybe. The word maybe is a silent torture. Meanwhile, at the homicide division, Maria Alice's case was buried. Literally. The file sat on a high shelf, covered in dust, in a room no one entered anymore. Cold cases, archived, forgotten. Marcelo Tavares had been transferred to another unit in 2004. He asked to take the file with him, but the request was denied. Protocol Tavares, the case belongs to the precinct where it was opened. He insisted. They denied it again. But Marcelo kept the poster. At the new precinct in Niterói, he taped the poster inside his locker where no one else could see it. But he saw it every day. When he opened the locker to get documents, there was Maria Alice, smiling, colorful hat, hibiscus flower. His wife, Renata, noticed. He had never gotten over it. You can't carry every unsolved case on your back, Marcelo. I know. But you're still carrying this one. I know. He couldn't explain it, couldn't justify it. There was something about that case, something that held him, something that wouldn't let him give up. Even after years, even after being transferred, even after everyone else had forgotten. Marcelo kept searching, in his spare time, on weekends. He reread the old reports, looking for something he might have missed. He called old informants. He checked recent arrest records, hoping to find Roberto Mendez. Silva? Nothing. Always nothing. Roberto had completely disappeared. No record of formal employment. No bank activity. No active CPF. It was as if he had died, or changed his identity again. 1, 4 years, 5, 6. Luciana Santos was unrecognizable. Her hair was grey, although she was only 38. Her face was lined, her eyes sunken. She had aged decades in just a few years. The physical pain of her loss was etched into every wrinkle, every white hair, every slow, heavy movement. She got a job at a laundromat, manual, repetitive, silent work. Perfect for someone who doesn't want to think. Perfect for someone who doesn't want to feel, just do. Wash, iron, fold, repeat. She would come home at the end of the day, sit in the living room, look at Maria Alice's room. Sometimes she would go in. Other times, she didn't have the strength. She would eat something simple, take a shower, lie down. She didn't sleep well. She never slept well. The nightmares were constant. Maria Alice calling for her. "Mum, help me." Luciana running, but never catching up. The girl always too far away, always disappearing into the Copacabana crowd. She would wake up sweating, crying. Get up. Go to her daughter's room. Sit on the bed. Wait for the sun to rise. This was rock bottom. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It wasn't a cinematic scene. It was silent. It was slow. It was a living death. It was the absence of hope. The Copacabana community had forgotten. The press had forgotten. The police had forgotten. But Luciana couldn't forget. And Marcelo couldn't forget. In 2009, 7 years after the disappearance, Luciana did something she had never had the courage to do. She dismantled Maria Alice's room. She folded the clothes carefully. She packed the toys in boxes. She took the drawings off the wall. Each object was a stab, each memory a farewell. She wasn't giving up. She was surviving. Because keeping that room untouched was like keeping the wound open. And she needed it to heal, even if the scar would never disappear. She put everything in the closet, closed the door, took a deep breath. And it was then, in that moment of absolute silence, that something began to move in the shadows, something small, something forgotten, something that was about to change everything. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel to never miss the stories of cases that justice has not forgotten. Turn on notifications and share so that more people know the struggle of families like Maria Alice's. Detective Marcelo Tavares was at his desk at the Niterói police station when the phone rang. It was an unknown number. He answered with the weary voice of someone who had already taken 1,000 useless calls that week. "Hello, police station, Detective Tavares." On the other end, a hesitant male voice. Hi, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Andre Souza. I was questioned in 2002 in the case of the girl who disappeared in Copacabana. Marcelo sat up, straighter in his chair. His heart sped up. Maria Alice. Yeah, Maria Alice. I need to talk to you. There's something I never told you. 3 hours later, Marcelo was sitting in a cafe in Tijuca across from Andre Souza. The man was in his 40s, his hair starting to grey, his nervous hands fidgeting with his coffee cup. He had worked as a janitor in a building in Copacabana in 2002. He had been briefly questioned, like dozens of other people, but never called to give a formal statement. Why didn't you say anything before? Marcelo asked, straight to the point. Andre looked down. Because I was scared. Scared of getting involved. Scared of being accused of being an accomplice, and I was using drugs at the time. I was afraid of being arrested. And now? Now I have a daughter. She's 7, the same age that girl was. Andre looked into Marcelo's eyes. I can't sleep. Any more, detective? Every time I look at my daughter, I see that girl from the poster. Marcelo waited in silence. Andre took a deep breath. I saw Roberto that day. Not at the beach. It was later. Around 3 in the afternoon, maybe. He was leaving an abandoned building on Rua Siqueira Campos, near the subway, alone, walking fast. He walked past me, didn't recognize me. I recognized him because I used to live in the same building as him. And the girl. I didn't see the girl. Just him. Marcelo wrote everything down. Which building? Andre gave him the address. Marcelo knew it. A 4-story building, abandoned for years, condemned by the city. It should have been demolished by now. Anything else? Andre hesitated. He was carrying a big backpack, and there was blood on his shirt. He tried to hide it with his arm, but I saw it. Marcelo felt a shiver run down his spine. After 8 years, a concrete lead. He thanked Andre, took down all his contact information and ran to his car. He drove straight to Copacabana. The building was still there, abandoned, with plywood covering the front and "Danger, do not enter" signs. Marcelo had no jurisdiction. The case wasn't officially his. He was in another precinct in another city, but he didn't care. He called Carvalho, his old partner from the original team. Carvalho, I need you, now. An hour later, the two of them were in front of the building. Carvalho had retired, but he didn't hesitate to help. You never gave up, did you, Marcelo? I couldn't. They entered through a hole in the plywood. The smell of mold was unbearable. A staircase with broken steps, graffitied walls, trash everywhere. Drug users probably used the place as a refuge. Marcelo and Carvalho went up slowly, with flashlights. First, floor empty. Second floor empty. Third floor, an old mattress, syringes, empty bottles. Fourth floor. There was a room at the back with a locked door. Marcelo forced the lock with a crowbar. The door gave way. The room was empty, just dust and debris. But there was something on the wall. Marcelo shone his flashlight on it. Scratches, fingernail marks, small, a child's. Marcelo felt his stomach turn. Carvalho knelt on the floor. Marcelo, look at this. There were dark stains on the wooden floor, old, very old, but still visible. Could it be blood? It could. Marcelo immediately called. Forensics. He didn't care about protocol, jurisdiction, or bureaucracy anymore. This was evidence, real evidence, after 8 years. The forensics team arrived 2 hours later. They collected samples from the stains, photographed the marks on the wall, searched every corner of the room. 3 days. Later, the result came in. The stains on the floor were blood, type O positive blood, consistent with Maria Alice. Marcelo held the report with trembling hands. 8 years, 8 damned years. And the proof had been there all along, hidden in an abandoned building less than 500 meters from the apartment where Maria Alice lived. He officially reopened the case. He pressured the chief detective, pressured the higher-ups, pressured until he got authorization to return to the investigation. Tavares, are you sure about this? It's been 8 years. I'm sure. Maria Alice's file was taken. Down from the dusty shelf. Marcelo opened it on his desk. He reviewed everything, every statement, every report, every photo, with new eyes, with new information. Roberto took Maria Alice to that building. He hurt her there, probably killed her there. And then what? Where did he hide the body? Marcelo returned to the building, this time with a full team. K9 units, ground-penetrating radar, excavation equipment. They spent days searching. The basement, the roof, the walls, nothing, no body. But the investigation didn't stop. Marcelo knew that Roberto had left the building around 3 in the afternoon that day, according to André, with a backpack, probably with Maria Alice's body inside. Where did he go after that? Marcelo reviewed the 2002 security camera footage again, this time focusing on the area around the abandoned building. And there it was, a camera from a bank on the corner of Rua Siqueira Campos, at 3:23 p.m. on January 26, 2002. Roberto Mendes Silva crossing the street, a large backpack on his back, walking fast. Marcelo followed the route on the available cameras. Roberto walked 6 blocks. He entered the subway. The subway's internal cameras from that time were of poor quality, but it was possible to see a male figure with a backpack boarding the line heading to the North Zone. North Zone. His car was found in Tijuca, in the North Zone. Marcelo felt the pieces of the puzzle starting to fit together. Roberto took Maria Alice to the abandoned building. He killed her there, put her body in the backpack, took the subway to Tijuca, probably buried the body somewhere, abandoned the car, fled. But where to? Marcelo revisited the lead about Roberto's mother, Sonia Mendes Silva. She still lived in Duque de Caxias. Marcelo knocked on her door again. 8 years later. Sonia opened it, older, more stooped. She recognized Marcelo immediately. She tried to close the door. He held it. "Mrs. Sonia, I've found new evidence. Your son killed that little girl, and you know where he is." "I don't know anything." "I can charge you with obstruction of justice. Aiding and abetting, you'll go to jail." Sonia hesitated. She looked from side to side, lowered her voice. "He's not here anymore. He left years ago." "Where did he go?" "I don't know. He called a few times at the beginning, then he stopped." "When was the last time?" Sonia thought. "About 4 years ago, maybe 2006. "Where did he call from?" "I don't know. He never said." Marcelo didn't believe her. He pressed harder, threatened her. Sonia started to cry. "He's my son. I can't." "He killed a 7-year-old child." Sonia broke down. She sat on the floor, covered her face with her hands, and then, in a low voice, almost a whisper, "He said he was in Minas, Governador Valadares, where he was born. He said he had gone back there, that he had changed his name again." Marcelo felt the adrenaline. Governador Valadares, Roberto's hometown. He immediately called the civil police of Minas. "Jerez," explained the case, sent photos of Roberto, requested a sweep of recent CPF records issued in the region. 2 weeks later, the answer came. A CPF had been issued in 2004 in the name of Carlos Alberto Ferreira. The photo on the ID card was of Roberto Mendes Silva. The registered address, a small house in a peripheral neighborhood of Governador Valadares. Marcelo took the first bus. Carvalho went with him. They arrived in Valadares the next day. They went straight to the address. The house was simple. A faded green gate, an overgrown lawn, a bicycle leaning against the wall. Marcelo knocked on the door. Silence. He knocked again. Nothing. He forced the door open, went inside. The house was empty. Furniture covered, a layer of dust. No one had lived there for months, maybe years. But there was something. A photo on the wall. Roberto Mendes Silva, older, grey hair, smiling. Next. To him, a woman, and 2 children. He had rebuilt his life. He had a new family. Marcelo felt rage burn inside him. While Luciana was wasting away in pain, while Maria Alice's room remained a shrine, Roberto was living a new life. In peace. With children. As if nothing had happened. Marcelo turned the photo over. On the back, a note. "Barbecue at Tonino's, March 2010. Tonino." Who was Tonino? Marcelo questioned the neighbors. An elderly woman remembered. Oh, Carlos? He moved a few months ago. Said he was going to work on a farm in the countryside. A friend of his got him a job. Do you know the friend's name? Tonino. I think his last name is Silva, too, or Santos, I don't remember. Marcelo checked records. He found 3 Antonio Silva in the region. He visited all 3. On the 3rd try, he got it right. Tonino opened the door suspiciously. Marcelo showed his ID. I'm looking for Carlos Alberto Ferreira. Do you know him? Tonino turned pale. Why? He's wanted for homicide. Tonino swallowed hard, tried to close the door. Marcelo held it. Where is he? I don't know. You'll be arrested for aiding and abetting. Tonino gave in. He works on a farm, near Consigliere Pena, about 80 kilometers from here. Marcelo and Carvalho got a rental car. They drove to the farm. It was late afternoon when they arrived. The sun was already setting. And there he was, Roberto Mendez Silva, older, completely grey hair, unshaven beard, wearing dirt-stained work overalls, carrying a tool. He saw Marcelo and Carvalho getting out of the car. He stopped, dropped the tool, and ran. The truth was about to come out in a way no one expected. Subscribe now to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the conclusion of this investigation that lasted almost a decade. Roberto Mendez Silva ran. But he didn't get far. Marcelo Tavares was 52 and no longer in shape for chases. But the rage burning inside him was worth 10 men. He ran after Roberto as if the last 8 years of frustration had condensed into those few seconds. Carvalho, even, older, shouted to the farm workers, "Police, stop that man!" 2 workers blocked the exit. Roberto tried to jump a fence. He stumbled. He fell. Marcelo caught up to him, threw him to the ground, cuffed him tightly. Roberto shouted, "You've got it wrong. I didn't do anything." Marcelo turned his face, forcing him to look him in the eyes. "Maria Alice, remember her?" Roberto turned pale. The mask fell. He closed his eyes and began to cry. It wasn't a cry of remorse. It was the cry of someone who knew it was all over. Marcelo and Carvalho took him to the Governador Valadares police station. The interrogation began at 8 in the evening. It lasted 7 hours. At first, Roberto denied everything. "I don't know what you're talking about. My name is Carlos Alberto Ferreira." Marcelo threw the photos on the table, the fake ID, the CPF, the fingerprints that matched Roberto Mendez Silva's. "It's over, Roberto, it's over." Roberto fell silent. Marcelo continued. "We found her blood in the abandoned building. We have a witness who saw you leaving there on the day of the disappearance. We have the subway cameras. We have everything." Roberto began to tremble. "Where is her body?" Silence. "Where is the body?" Marcelo slammed his hand on the table. Roberto broke down. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want to." "What didn't you want?" And then Roberto Mendez Silva began to talk, and what he said would shock not only Marcelo, but the entire Copacabana community when the confession became public. "I loved Luciana, I really did. But she didn't love me the same way. I knew it. I saw it in her eyes. She still thought about her ex-husband. I was just convenient." Roberto wiped his tears with his cuffed hands. Marcelo waited. "And Maria Alice, the girl didn't accept me." "Not really. She called me Uncle Beto, never Dad. She tolerated me because her mother told her to. But I saw the way she looked at me, with suspicion, like I was an intruder. You killed a child because she wouldn't call you Dad?" Marcelo's voice was filled with disgust. "No, it wasn't because of that." Roberto raised his voice. "That day at the beach, she said she wanted her real father to come back. She said I would never be her father. She said she was going to ask her mom to send me away." Marcelo felt nauseous. "I got angry, so angry. I had done everything for them, everything, and that little girl, she was going to destroy everything. She was going to take me away from Luciana." Roberto shook his head. "I didn't take her to the beach. I took her to the abandoned building. I knew the place. I had used it before for other things." "What other things?" Roberto hesitated. And then he revealed something no one expected. I used to take women there, when I still lived in Valadares before moving to Copacabana. Women no one would look for. Prostitutes, drug users. I hurt them. Marcelo felt his blood run cold. You killed other people. 2 in Valadares in 1996. And 1997. They never found the bodies. They never looked for me. Roberto spoke as if he were narrating something mundane. Carvalho, who had been silent until then, interrupted. Are you a serial killer? I'm not a monster. I lose control when I feel like I'm going to be abandoned. When I feel like I'm going to lose someone. Marcelo had to leave the room for a moment. He took a deep breath in the hallway. He went back. Continue. What did you do to Maria Alice? Roberto lowered his head. I took her to the room on the 4th floor of the building. She started screaming. I covered her mouth. She scratched me. She fought back. She was strong for her age. His voice was mechanical, distant. I didn't want to kill her. I just wanted to scare her, make her promise she wouldn't tell her mother anything, but she wouldn't stop screaming. And you killed her. I squeezed her neck, just to make her stop screaming, but I squeezed too hard. When I looked, she wasn't breathing anymore. Roberto started crying again. Marcelo wanted to vomit. He wanted to punch that man until there was nothing left, but he controlled himself. Where is the body? I put it in the backpack. I took the subway. I went to Tijuca. There was a vacant lot near where I left the car. I dug a hole. I buried her there. Where exactly? Roberto gave the coordinates. A lot that was now a residential condominium, built in 2005. Maria Alice was buried under a building. The news exploded. Newspapers, television, radio, the internet. Serial killer confesses to Maria Alice's murder after 8 years. Man rebuilt life after killing stepdaughter in Copacabana. Girl's body may be under condominium in Tijuca. But what truly shocked the Copacabana community was another revelation. During the in-depth investigation, Marcelo discovered that Roberto had not acted completely alone. Sonia Mendez Silva, his mother, knew from the beginning. Roberto called her on the day of the crime. She helped him escape, gave him money, hid information. And there was more. Tonino, the friend who got him the job on the farm, also knew. Roberto had told him everything years ago, drunk during a barbecue. Tonino didn't report it. I thought he was making it up. I thought it was a drunkard's lie. 2 people knew, and they remained silent. Sonia was arrested for obstruction of justice and aiding and abetting. Tonino was indicted as an accomplice. The press tore them apart. Mother helped son flee after child's murder. Friend knew about crime and didn't report it. The Copacabana community was in shock. Roberto was remembered as the helpful manager of the sports store. Friendly, polite, always helping, always. The neighbors. He seemed so normal, a neighbor told the press. We would never have suspected. But the worst was yet to come. Marcelo had to break the news to Luciana. He went personally to the laundromat where she worked. She was folding sheets when she saw him enter. She recognized him immediately, dropped everything. You found him? I found him. Marcelo told her everything, every detail, every word of the confession. Luciana listened in absolute silence. Without crying, without screaming, she just listened. When Marcelo finished, she was silent for long minutes. Then she asked in a weak voice, "Where is my daughter's body?" Marcelo explained about the lot, about the condominium built on top. We'll need a court order to excavate. It could take a while. Luciana nodded slowly. 8 years. 8 years, and she was just a few kilometers away from me the whole time. She broke down. Finally, broke down. Marcelo held her as she cried. It wasn't a cry of relief. It was a cry of renewed pain. The tiny hope she had kept in the depths of her soul, the irrational hope that maybe, just maybe, Maria Alice was still alive somewhere, died in that moment. Roberto Mendez Silva was formally charged with aggravated homicide, concealment of a corpse, and 2 other homicides in Valadares. Sonia and Tonino were charged with complicity. The trial was set for 6 months later. The press camped outside the prison where Roberto was held. He gave no interviews. He sat in his cell, in silence, staring at the wall. Copacabana was never the same again. The story of Maria Alice came back with full force. New posters were put up. Now they didn't say missing. They said, "Justice for Maria Alice." The community mobilized, vigils, protests, petitions for the excavation of the lot to be authorized immediately. "We want to bring Maria Alice home," one banner read. Marcelo Tavares was hailed as a hero, but he didn't feel like one. He felt he had failed. "If I had investigated better in 2002, maybe I would have found out sooner. Maybe Roberto wouldn't have rebuilt his life. Maybe—" "You never gave up," Carvalho said. "That's what matters." But Marcelo couldn't stop thinking. 8 years. Maria Alice was buried alone for 8 years, while her killer lived in peace. The truth has finally come to light, but the journey for justice is not yet over. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow real stories of cases that were never forgotten. Share so that the memory of victims like Maria Alice lives on. June 2011. 9 years after the disappearance. The trial of Roberto Mendes Silva began on a warm winter morning in Rio de Janeiro. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, curious onlookers, human rights activists, families of other missing victims. But at the center of it all, in the front row, was Luciana Santos. Thin, her hair completely white, her trembling hands clutching a handkerchief. Beside her, Detective Marcelo Tavares. Roberto entered in handcuffs, escorted by police officers. His head was bowed, his beard had grown, his eyes were empty. He avoided looking at Luciana, but she stared at him, every second, without blinking. The trial lasted 5 days. Witnesses were heard. Forensic evidence was presented. Andre Sousa, the janitor who finally found the courage to speak, gave an emotional testimony. Sonia Mendes Silva, Roberto's mother, was also tried separately and sentenced to 3 years for obstruction of justice. The prosecution presented the evidence: the blood in the abandoned building, the security cameras, the recorded confession, the false identities, the other 2 homicides in Valadares. The defense tried to plead insanity. Experts refuted it. Roberto knew exactly what he was doing. On the 3rd day, Luciana was called to testify. She walked to the witness stand slowly, as if each step hurt. The prosecutor asked about Maria Alice. Luciana took a deep breath. She was light, pure light. She would wake up singing. She drew flowers on everything. She helped everyone. "I've never seen such a generous child." Luciana's voice trembled. "And that man," she pointed at Roberto, "took all of that. From the world. Why? Because she didn't call him Dad?" Roberto bowed his head even lower. "He didn't just take my daughter. He took my life, my future, my reason for existing. I died that day too. The only difference is that I'm still breathing." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Several jurors were wiping away tears. On the 5th day, it was time for the verdict. The jurors retired to deliberate. 2 hours later, they returned. The judge asked, "Do you, the jury, find the defendant Roberto Mendes Silva guilty of the crime of aggravated homicide against Maria Alice Santos?" "Yes." Luciana closed her eyes. She breathed for the first time in days. Roberto was sentenced to 32 years in a closed prison regime, plus 12 years for the 2 homicides in Valadares. Total, 44 years, with no possibility of parole before serving half his sentence. He would be a 70-year-old man when he got out, if he got out. When the sentence was read, Roberto did not react. He remained motionless. But Luciana collapsed into Marcelo's arms. It wasn't a cry of joy. It was a cry of exhaustion, of closure, of justice, however late. Outside the courthouse, Luciana gave a brief interview. "Justice has been served, but my daughter is not coming back. Nothing brings her back. I hope other families don't go through what I went through. I hope other investigators are like Detective Marcelo, who never gave up." But the journey was not over yet. There was one last thing to do: bring Maria Alice home. The court order to excavate the land where the condominium was built took months. Bureaucratic issues, resistance from residents, operational costs. But the pressure from the media and the community was strong. In December 2011, the excavation was finally authorized. A team of experts, forensic, archaeologists and police officers worked for 3 weeks. They excavated the condominium's subsoil, following the coordinates Roberto had provided. On December 18, 2011, they found it. Small bones, a child's, wrapped in remnants of fabric. Beside them, a yellow plastic bucket, partially deteriorated. DNA analysis confirmed. It was Maria Alice. Luciana was informed in person. She didn't cry this time, she just nodded. "Can I bury my daughter now?" "You can." The funeral took place in January 2012, 10 years after the disappearance. The small white coffin was covered in flowers, hibiscus, Maria Alice's favorite. Hundreds of people attended. Copacabana residents, activists, other families of missing persons, police officers who worked on the case. Marcelo Tavares carried the coffin along with 5 other investigators. His hands trembled. His daughters were at the ceremony, now teenagers. They understood now why their father had never forgotten that poster. Luciana knelt before the grave for an hour after the burial. She spoke to her daughter in a low voice. She apologized. She said she loved her. She promised she would never be forgotten. And she kept her promise. In the following months, Luciana created the Maria Alice Association, Missing Children, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping families of missing children, offering psychological support, pressuring authorities, and keeping cases alive in the media. She transformed her pain into purpose. She visited police stations, spoke at schools, participated in TV shows. Don't let your cases be forgotten. Don't give up. Never give up. The association helped solve 3 other missing person cases in the following years. It didn't bring the children back, they were all already dead, but it brought answers, it brought closure, it brought justice. Marcelo Tavares retired from the police in 2013, but continued to work as a volunteer consultant on cold cases. He gave lectures to new investigators. Never archive a case just because time has passed. There's always a lead. There's always something that can be revisited. He kept the poster of Maria Alice until the end, not in his locker anymore, in a frame, on the wall of his home office, a daily reminder of why he chose to be a police officer. Copacabana never forgot Maria Alice. A small memorial was erected on Rua Siqueira Campos, in front of the building where she was killed. A plaque with her photo, smiling, with her colorful hat and hibiscus flower. Below it, an inscription, Maria Alice Santos, 1995-2002. Your light never went out. Every year on January 26th, the anniversary of her disappearance, the community gathers. There, they light candles. They leave flowers. They remember. Luciana attends every year, now with white hair, but with less empty eyes. The pain never completely went away. Scars don't disappear. But she learned to live with them. She learned that her daughter's memory could be stronger than her. Absence. In 2015, 13 years after the crime, Luciana gave an interview for a documentary about solved cases. Delayed justice is still justice. My daughter rests in peace now, and I have found a new purpose, to ensure that other Maria Alices are not forgotten, that other families do not face years of silence and abandonment. The documentary ends with footage of Maria Alice playing on the beach, recorded weeks before her disappearance. She runs on the sand, laughs, builds castles, waves at the camera, alive, happy, whole. And then the screen goes dark. A text appears. In memory of all missing children, may their stories never be forgotten. May justice, however late, always prevail. Roberto Mendes Silva continues to serve his sentence. In 2018, he requested a sentence reduction. It was denied. In 2020, he requested parole. Denied again. He will spend decades behind bars, and even when he gets out, if he gets out, he will forever carry the weight of the 3 lives he destroyed. But Maria Alice is not remembered for how she died. She is remembered for her smile, for her generosity, for the flowers she drew, for the light she radiated. Her story became a symbol that archived cases can be solved, that dedicated investigators make a difference, that families can find, if not complete peace, at least some kind of healing, and that the memory of a child can be stronger than silence, stronger than forgetfulness, stronger even than death. The story of Maria Alice reminds us that justice, however late, is still justice. If this case touched you, share it so that more people know the importance of never giving up. Archived cases are not forgotten cases. Families deserve answers, and victims deserve to be remembered not for the tragedy, but for the life they lived. Thank you for following this journey.